Hi, we are almost in the end of my series. This is the 5th video, and today I want to show you some watercolor techniques that you can start with, and you can definitely use them no matter what you are doing. It's for landscapes, painting, or for illustrations, or just for relaxation, or for painting florals or botanicals. It really doesn't matter. So you can try this at home just on a sheet of paper, and you can see which one you like the most, and you can definitely use each of the techniques in almost like any type of painting. So I'm sure that as a creative, you can definitely do what you like. So the first one I want to show you is a technique that I barely use, to be honest, but it's quite artistic. So let me pre-wet my palette. I have my Mary blue watercolors. I have Princeton Snap round brush number 10. I am using Archie's paper. It's a bit more expensive, but I just love it. So I almost always use this one, but you don't have to start with the most expensive paper, although I wouldn't get a cheap paper. Never mind, let's just talk about the techniques. So dry on dry is the first one I will show you. So it's when your brush is very dry, you pick some water, but you don't really add too much. You pick your color, your watercolor, without really adding extra water, and then you just go on the paper. And when you have such texture going on, you can see how artistic it is. And I am using the rough paper of Arches, so you could really see. So in case you are using hot pressed, which is extremely smooth paper, then the white spots will be less, just because the paper is smooth. But this is when you use quite dry brush. If you don't want this effect, it means that you need extra water on your brush. Let's say you add water and then you go. So this is now wet on dry. So you have quite a lot of water and paint, and you can get a solid swatch on your paper. So dry on dry, dry on wet. No, I am completely lying. This was wet on dry. I don't know what did I say until now. So maybe it's just a good idea. I'm messing around with my video, but okay, let's just write this down. Dry on dry. This is wet on dry when our brush is loaded with a lot of paint and water, but our paper is dry. So the brush is wet and you put it on dry paper. The next one I will show you is dry on wet, and then wet on wet. My favorite one is wet on wet, and if you are following me, you already know this. So dry on wet, it means that your surface, your paper, will be wet, but your brush will have very concentrated paint and almost no water. So let's make a nice watery surface. I don't know if you can see here on the side, it's visible. I will dry my brush and I will pick concentrated water paint. I keep talking no sense, but okay. We have a very concentrated paint on our brush and we just go on the wet. So this means that you will not have a harsh line like this, but it will also not bleed a lot. So if I make this, my paint will stay where I put it, but it will really smoothly bleed in the rest of the water. So it will keep the shape, but it will not keep a very strong border. If you need to have a very nice border here, then you use wet on dry, because then you can see here the paint stays where you put it and it doesn't bleed anywhere because the surface is absolutely dry. And then let's just make wet on wet. And here I am showing you these techniques with only using water and one color, but you can definitely use 2 colors, and I will demonstrate them here on the bottom in just a minute. So let's say our surface is wet, and then we load some watery pigment, and then we just add it. So you can see this time when it's wet on wet, it really bleeds more. It also depends on the paper you are using. So here our paint was really concentrated, and here it's very watery, and when it dries it will just keep bleeding, and then it will dry a lot lighter than we see it now. Like this. And now let's say that we want to use 2 colors. Let's just make wet on dry and wet on wet when using 2 colors. So wet on dry, we have the paint, and let's say we have this swatch here. When you are using a rough paper, you definitely need more water, but how to control the water is another thing. Maybe I can make a video about it. Let me know in the comments if you are interested or not, so I know, or if you have a question, just let me know. So let's make one more green piece here. So this one we have to wait to dry, so I can put a second layer using the same technique. But here for this one I need it to be dry, wet. And I will add the second color while my first layer is still wet. So to make sure you don't have too much water, just turn your page like this to the side, and if your water creates a pool here, you just pick it up with your brush and dry it on the paper towel, so like this, so you don't have any pools. And then let's grab another color. Let's just take some red. I have permanent red light here, and I will just go around so you can see. Let me just zoom in. Okay, you can see how the red just bleeds in my first layer. So now you probably know why this technique is my favorite. I don't have to think so much for the shape or anything, but the paint just does such a nice magic. So this one I still have to wait for it to dry. Let's see if the first one is dry. No. Okay. I will wait and I will continue after that. Until that, let me just show you 3 very nice techniques. So the first one is when we have some paint on the paper like this. So I paint blue in this case, but you can definitely use any color. So let's say like this. So the first thing I want to show you is what will happen if we drop some more paint. And for this I really need a very well loaded brush like this, and then I will make it just drop on my piece. You can also just do a little bit like this, tapping your brush, so you can see what kind of effect you can get, and you just let it go. Like you cannot control this, or you can, but then it will be just different technique. And the second one I will show you is I will paint another one and then I will drop water so you can see what will be the result. And these kind of techniques are just great for when you want to make a nice background, or maybe sky or such thing. And then you grab a little bit of water and you just drop it in. So let's just drop one time and maybe second time, and now we just have to let it dry. But maybe it's already visible what the water does to our piece. And then for the third one, again some blue. I will drop something else. It's not gonna be water, it's not gonna be paint, but it's not even an art supply. Salt. So this can make a nice effect. Let's see. And of course, depends on how much salt you add, then you will get a little bit different effect. But the exciting thing is that you don't really know what will be the last result. So here, all I'm trying to show you is how to use watercolor and all the watercolor techniques in a very relaxing way and fun way for sure, just to enjoy the whole process and not only focusing on the result you are looking for. Now let's see if this is dry. Maybe I will just use my heating tool to speed up a little bit the process, to just finish wet on dry when we are using two colors, so you can see the difference. Alright, I think now it's way better. So let me just grab more of my red, and when you go wet on dry, it means that the first layer is absolutely dry, and your next layer, when you add it, you can see that there will be a harsh border between the two colors, and wet on wet, the two colors just bleed in each other. So now I think my salt, I can scrub it a little bit and show you what I got. Let's see. So these last three are absolute my favorites. I don't know. Yes, you can see what the salt made to my paint. Here the middle one is the water, and here is when you drop more paint on the painted surface while it's still wet. So it's like a wet on wet technique, but instead of painting, you just drop paint. So wet on dry is when you have the harsh lines, and wet on wet is when water and color, or two colors, just bleed in each other. So yeah, these are the techniques. Wet on wet, the salt and stuff is definitely my favorite. I hope this was helpful enough. I will see you next week when we are going to paint a very simple project. It will be monochrome landscape, monochrome mountains, so make sure to not miss it out. See you then. Bye!